Thank you for joining us for today's webinar on Simplifying AI with Profound API. Hello, I'm Brian May, Vice President of Product Management here at Profound Logic. In today's webinar, we're going to take a look at the current landscape of generative AI and why it's important to your business. We're also going to discuss how tools like Profound API can help you to bring AI into your applications. We have a lot to cover in today's webinar, so there won't be a live question and answer session at the end. However, feel free to enter your questions into the GoToWebinar interface and we will address them as the webinar continues. Today I'll be joined by our own founder and CEO, Alex Roytman, who's going to give us a hands-on demonstration of the power of APIs and Profound API when integrated with artificial intelligence. So for today's webinar, we're going to take a close look at the current state of generative AI and how it has grown over the past few months, as well as how it should grow into the future. I want to talk a little bit about the exploration of AI that Profound Logic has been doing, and then talk about how our Profound API product has been built for future technologies like AI and how the specific features inside make integrating with AI very simple. And then Alex is going to jump in and show you exactly that. He's going to show us how we can use Profound API to integrate AI into our IBMI applications. So, generative AI. If you haven't heard, it's here and it's growing fast. If you take a look at the history of generative AI, it has accelerated tremendously over the past year. If you take a look at ChatGPT, which is what everyone has been talking about for the past few months, it was introduced in December and had 1 million users within the first 5 days of being released. Everyone wants to know what the capabilities of generative AI are and to figure out how AI can help their business. That growth was not just an initial spurt. As of February, the service had over 100 million users. The ChatGPT website in June alone had 1.6 billion visits. Again, everyone is trying to figure out what is possible and how they can utilize it. The AI market is expected to grow from 86.9 billion in 2022 to over $407 billion by 2027. That is remarkable growth in an industry over a 5-year period. And it shows no sign of slowing down. So let's take a look at this growth and how it's come to be. We'll start a little over a year ago. That's when all of this growth really started to accelerate. I'm a parent, so I like to compare things to things I understand, and kids are one of those things. So a little over a year ago, I would compare AI capabilities to a toddler. What do I mean by that? I mean that generative AI at that point was still unrefined. It was still developing, and updates were being made all the time. One of those big updates was to reduce the amount of misinformation that was coming out of AI. AI was just regurgitating anything it found on the internet. And as we all know, the internet can be a shady place sometimes. There were incidents, and you can read about them, where it would give misleading information, or in some cases, even toxic information. There were recorded instances where AI was actually being kind of offensive, because that's the content that it was finding when it was going through the information that was available on the internet. And so updates had to be made to teach AI what was appropriate and what was not, what was trusted content and what was maybe just someone on a message board throwing out their opinions. And so, much like a toddler, the developer of AI services had to go in and make some refinements and to teach the AI how to determine if information was viable. At this time, it was also a bit cumbersome to get the results you wanted out of an AI. You had to be extremely specific as far as the instructions that you gave to the AI service. They had to be precise. You had to tell it exactly what you wanted, and honestly, sometimes you had to do it multiple times before you got the actual results you were looking for. Again, this reminded me a lot of my own daughters when they were in that toddler phase, when you had to tell them to do something over and over again until they finally sunk in exactly what you were telling them to do. So this is where we were about a year ago, which is really not that long. And that brings us to now. And now we are in an age when I like to think of AI as a teenager. I have teenagers. I have one daughter who's in college now, one in high school. This is a time of their lives that I'm very familiar with. And I see a lot of similarities when I look at the generative AI landscape. So what do I mean by that? AI right now can accomplish amazing things with the right guidance. In fact, that guidance is so important at this point that it has spawned an entire field in the IT industry called prompt engineering. A prompt engineer is someone who is well versed in how AI works, and they are experts at actually taking a problem and then building the appropriate instructions and questions to feed into an AI in order to get the desired responses. But again, with the right guidance, and you're seeing it everywhere, AI can accomplish amazing things. But AI is still experiencing some growing pains, much like a teenager. It's not perfect yet. And much like humans, it may never be perfect, but much like a teenager, you can expect AI to make some mistakes, for there to be some missteps right now. And that's okay. A few examples, there was a major outage in ChatGPT in March. It affected all users for several hours. Again, technology growing pains. We're talking about a brand new technology that from an IT standpoint is still growing and scaling. And those types of outages are to be expected at this point. If you've kept up with the industry, you heard about the CAPTCHA incident, where a prompt engineer was actually able to convince ChatGPT to lie. It actually went online to a service and convinced the person at that service that it was a person who was blind and couldn't do a CAPTCHA. And so that person actually solved the CAPTCHA for the AI so that the AI could access the information behind it. So again, that is something that we need to keep in mind as we get ready to try to integrate AI into our lives. You know, there are lots of things that still need to happen and lots of regulation and filtering in order to get AI ready for prime time. And for that reason, AI is really not trusted fully yet. Everyone's amazed by what can be done with AI at this point. It is truly amazing. But the majority of people I speak to, both in my day job as well as just people I know from, around the city I live, everyone has a little bit of reservation about AI right now. Whether or not they trust it, whether or not they trust the results that they get from AI. And again, at this point in AI's growth, that makes sense. But very soon, AI is going to move into the adult stage. So what do I mean by the adult stage? It's going to become more independent, meaning that it will be able to take on real world tasks and be able to perform them without having tons of instruction to tell it exactly what needs to be done. It's going to be able to take on repetitive tasks that right now people are having to do manually. And by taking on those tasks, it will free up your employees in your business to be able to do more meaningful work instead of the mundane. AI is going to become more trusted. Regulation is already under consideration about how to control the content that may come out of AI. There's already new filtering being updated all the time to make the results better and keep offensive content out. And honestly, just the more AI use we see, the more AI is going to be trusted, especially in the business realm. Decision makers are going to be able to use AI to help them make decisions about business. And let's face it, AI is going to become part of our everyday lives. AI features are already being built into applications that we use every day. And as that usage grows, the world as a whole is going to become more comfortable with AI. So the question is, will you be ready? Are you already thinking about what ways AI can help your business? Are you experimenting with AI now? Brainstorming ideas so that you have plans for the future? Have you started thinking about how you're going to get the skills that you need in order to integrate AI into your applications? Especially in IBMI shops, these are skills that may not necessarily be on staff right now. So customers are going to look to trusted partners to help them with this AI integration. Partners like Profound Logic are here for our customers to help to guide them. Are you building a strategy? You need a roadmap. Obviously, your company is doing some sort of future strategy for the business itself. But is that business strategy taking into account technological advancements like AI? No one, including Profound Logic, is saying that you should AI enable all of your applications tomorrow. The technology's not ready, but it will be. At the pace AI is growing, mainstream implementations are going to be here faster than you think, and you should be planning for them. But you don't just have to take my word for it. IBM recently released a study where they interviewed 3,000 CEOs from 30 different countries in various industries. And what that study revealed is that AI is top of mind for these executives, but they still have their reservations. So when I was going through the study, I went through and I took a few key statistics that I wanted to talk about in today's webinar because I think they really sum up what these CEOs are thinking. So AI is absolutely top of mind for these executives. 48% of them say that productivity of their employees is their top priority. Every company is trying to make sure that the people that they have are as productive as possible so that the companies can be profitable. And AI obviously is one way that they see to help make their employees more productive. In fact, 50% of the CEOs that were interviewed say they're already working to integrate AI into their products and services. So the race is on. 75% of those CEOs believe that AI is going to become a major competitive advantage. They all agree that the companies and products with the best generative AI features and strategies are the companies that are going to be on top. This may surprise you, but 43% of those CEOs say they are already using generative AI to inform them about strategic decisions for their business. They're obviously not relying solely on AI to make business decisions at this point, but they are using it to assist in making decisions. But there is a flip side to that coin. Even though they are extremely excited about the capabilities that AI presents, 57% of those CEOs still say they're concerned about data security. And they should be. Data is key to any business. And they have concerns about feeding their information into an AI service and not knowing exactly what's being done with that data once they turn it over. Therefore, only 30% of non-CEO executives think their organization is ready to adopt AI responsibly. Let's face it, AI is going to change the way business functions. Executives are concerned that once AI becomes part of the everyday life of business, that employees may not be prepared to responsibly use AI and avoid misuse, legal ramifications of AI use, data security, or any other number of pitfalls that can arise. Almost half of the respondents are concerned about the accuracy or the bias of AI results. There's obviously going to be concern about misinformation. And when talking to executive teams, even though CEOs see the huge potential of AI and they're feeling pressure to forge ahead with it, only 29% of those executive teams think that they actually have the skills to properly implement it in-house. This should be no surprise to our customers, but as this explosion of growth in the AI industry has happened, Profound Logic has been looking at it very closely, trying to figure out how it can bring value to our customers. So we've decided to focus on real-world examples that can bring value. We've taken a look at things like code transformation, indexing data for AI, building AI copilots, and AI plugins. We've tried to come up with examples that could bring real value to our customers. One of the first things we took a look at was using AI within our code transformation services. As many of you know, we have services that can help transform a legacy code base in RPG into modern Node.js. Obviously, AI was a very interesting fit into that process. So as we've been doing futurization of code, we've been looking at how to use AI to clean up that code, as well as using it to help us to clean up and enhance the SQL syntax used in those applications. Another use case that we've actually had some fun with is taking large amounts of text-based data and indexing it to make it easier for AI to consume. By doing this, we were able to create Alec. Who's Alec? Well, Alec is actually a Slack bot that we created that is actually an AI who has access to all of our public-facing documentation on our products as well as our internal documentation. And so we can go into our Slack client and ask Alec questions about our products or how we might solve a problem with our products. And Alec can look through all of our internal wikis as well as our external documentation about the products and formulate answers to help guide us as we're building enhancements. And just for fun, we gave him a little bit of attitude. It's really amazing the things you can do with AI. So as Alec was built, part of the prompt for Alec just said to give him just a little bit of a smart Alec persona, thus the name. Another use case that has actually been out for a little while is copilots. So you may have heard of GitHub Copilot, which is a really powerful tool if you're doing development, say in VS Code. The AI can pair program with you as you're building an application. And that's a really powerful tool. But at Profound, we started thinking about, okay, but could we build copilots at an application level? So could we build an assistant that could answer questions about an application as an end user is using it? Could that copilot walk you through finding information in that application, give you instructions, or even navigate the application for you to find the information you're looking for? So with that in mind, we built Genie Copilot. Now, Genie Copilot is a proof of concept. It's not a product that we're selling at this point. What Genie Copilot does is it uses a natural language interface and ChatGPT's inherent knowledge of the IBMI operating system. Yes, it does know about IBMI, combined with information from the actual application screens to give you an assistant within a Genie skin that can help with navigating an application or finding out how to get a piece of information about your IBMI system. Again, this is just a proof of concept at this point. However, this technology could be combined with indexing your internal documentation or standard operating procedures like we did with Alec. And that combination could build an AI that could assist your users in using your application, not only from a function keys and mouse standpoint, but also from a company policy standpoint. It could be a very powerful technology that you can integrate into your applications just using Profound Logic products. Plugins are another hot topic in the generative AI, especially in the ChatGPT arena. What plugins do are give you the ability to put your own custom code and custom information into the ChatGPT interface or other AI interfaces. There's already been announcements that there will be plugins available for AI in Windows and Microsoft Office 365 in the very near future. And Alex is going to show you exactly how to do that in just a moment. No matter what business case makes sense for your business when it comes to generative AI, Profound Logic is here to help. IBMI customers around the globe already trust Profound Logic to help them with new technologies. As an industry leader, we are always looking to explore new technologies like AI and build useful and intuitive solutions that bring value to our customers. And we're IBMI experts. I don't have to tell you that when you're talking about new technologies, usually the cookie cutter solutions and the examples that you find out on the internet do not take IBMI into account. That's where we come in. We understand not only IBMI, but these newer technologies, and we have the expertise to help you bring them together and deliver value. One such solution is Profound API. When it comes to generative AI, APIs are going to be key. You're going to need to consume APIs in order to interface with the AI service and bring it into your own applications. Most customers are not going to send their business users to the ChatGPT website in order to try to use AI to navigate their applications. They're going to want that embedded within the applications themselves. And the way to do that is using APIs. Companies are also going to want to provide APIs for the AI to consume in order to assist in the answers that their business users are going to get. And Alex is going to show us how to do all of those things within his demo in just a minute. Profound API was built with one thing in mind: making APIs for IBMI customers simple. Whether it's creating, managing, deploying, consuming APIs, we tried to take a holistic approach to APIs and bring a tool to market that makes everything as simple as possible. And by making it simple, it gives our customers the ability to deliver APIs quickly. All the tools that you'll need are right there within the Profound API interface, which will reduce the learning curve and have you creating the APIs you need for integration like AI within minutes. In fact, you're going to see that in the demo in just a moment. Profound API was built with future technologies in mind. When we built Profound API, we built it on top of industry standard technologies so that when our customers built APIs, they would be ready for not only AI, but for whatever else may come in the future. So Profound API, as I mentioned, makes it fast and simple. Our customers can create APIs for use in any type of integration scenario with very little fuss in a very rapid time frame. One of the advantages to using APIs for integrating with AI is that you can actually have more granular control over the data access. Can you give generative AI direct access to your database? Yes, you could. And then the AI would have access to your entire database. With an API, you have the ability to take a look at your data and decide what pieces of data should the AI be able to access. Are there columns in a particular table that have sensitive information that we don't want to make available? Then you just don't put them in the API. Do you have non-disclosure agreements with some of your customers that would prevent you from using their data with an AI service? Well, within your API, you can actually exclude those rows from the data that's retrieved from the tables so that the AI never sees that information and you're not violating any of your non-disclosures. As I mentioned, Profound API was built with industry standards in mind, one of those being the Open API specification. Open API is the generally accepted standard when it comes to documenting a standard REST API interface. Generative AIs like ChatGPT fully understand Open API already. Again, it's used everywhere, and Profound API automatically generates Open API specifications for every API that's created within the product. So every API you create has the potential to then be integrated into a generative AI to start delivering business value to you. With that, I'm going to go ahead and turn things over to Alex, who's going to show you exactly how using Profound API and its features can make integrating AI into your applications a reality. Take it away, Alex.
All right, thank you so much, Brian. So let me start off just by showing you the data that we're going to be working with. I'm going to jump onto the green screen and show you a quick little program here. So on the menu, I'm going to select option 1, and here we have some product data that we're working with. It's categorized by different categories. Here we're looking at navigation system. I can select one of the products here to view details, and here we have, if I press F6, we have features of the products that we can look at. So given that we're working with this data, let's say that we wanted to expose this information to an AI that can help us either answer questions about it or do a variety of things with this data. So these are the examples that we're going to concentrate on today. So let me exit out, and I'm just going to now jump right into ChatGPT and show you this concept of plugins. So ChatGPT, as well as other large language models and other tools out there that are AI based, provide this capability, what's called plugins, which is the ability for the chat engine to integrate with your data through API. So here I've got no plugins enabled at the moment, and I'm going to go through the whole process. I'm going to go into the plugin store, and I'm going to go over here and install a plugin. Now, here are the plugins that are publicly available. These are the popular ones. There's a whole bunch of them. If I look at all of them, there's a whole bunch of them that are publicly available. But here, what we're looking to do is to develop our own plugin or integrate our own plugin that's custom to us, that's not publicly available. And that plugin is going to talk to IBM iData. So I'm going to click on develop your own plugin. And at this point, I've already gone to Profound API, and that's the tool that I use to develop the plugin. I'm going to show you all of that, but now that it's developed, let me just show you the process of getting it put into ChatGPT and having us use it. So I happen to have Profound API running here on port 8082. This is the IDE for it, and it's on localhost 8082. Now, quick note here, it's running on localhost. That's because that's where I'm doing development, but Profound API is built on Node.js. Node.js runs on any type of server, so you can run it on Windows, Linux, or run it directly on IBM i as well. All right, so we're going to grab localhost 8082, and we'll just type that in right into here. And we're going to click Find Manifest File. That's one of the files that ChatGPT, in this case, needs to look at what you're providing as your plugin. So it's validated that manifest file. We'll look at that briefly in a moment. Here's what that file looks like. Don't worry about the content for now. And then it also, as part of this, provided an Open API, not to be confused with Open AI, but Open API spec, which is what's over here. We'll take a look at how we generate that as well. So here's the plugin. Let's go ahead and install it. So it's installed now, and it's selected for me to use. So you can see the little icon that we have. That means that's the plugin that we're using, and it's selected to you. So now if I ask any questions, AI is going to be smart enough to say, is this a question that I'm asking about the products or the categories, or the features of the products? And if so, it's going to go out and call our API to get those answers. So let's go ahead and try this. So let's say, how many products do we offer? So we've asked the question. ChatGPT is thinking about it, and you can see that it's decided to use our plugins. That's what this means. It's calling our API, and it says we currently offer 80 products. Now, what it has done in here, if we wanted to look at the details, is it called an API and it passed this parameter in, and it got this data back. So that's how it knew the answer. So we can actually look at those details. So it knows to use our plugin or our API to get the answers that it needs if the questions that I'm asking are related to the data that we've provided to it. So maybe we can say something like, what are the product categories? So again, it went out, it called the API and says, these are different categories of products that we have. Maybe I should say something like, show me the first 5 navigation systems. So again, it's making an API call, and at any point, if I wanted to see what is it doing exactly, what is the API that it's calling, I got this information here that I can expand and see what it's doing. But I'm just having a conversation with it, and the AI on its own is figuring out which API to call and how to formulate the answer for me. So it's got the top 5 products that are navigation systems that it's listed for me. It figured all of that out just through calling the API. So let's now do something just more interesting. Let's say we wanted to increase the price of the first product by $1. Now, our API provides the ability to actually modify the data. And if that wasn't there, ChatGPT would come back and say, no, I can't do that. But let's see if it's able to increase the price of the first product by $1. So it's interesting that it's making multiple calls to the API. So I bet you the first one is to get the price of the product or get the data about the product. And then the next one is to actually update the price accordingly. So you can see that the price has been updated. Let me just verify its work. So it says the new price is 105.99, and here it was 105.95, and here it was 104.95. So it properly did the updating of the information. So perfect. So you see now how this operates. You're just talking to ChatGPT, and because it has this information available, it can go tap into our IBMI system and do those operations that we've allowed it to do. So let's look at how this was accomplished. So first of all, just to let you know, I've already mentioned that I have an API server. This is the IDE for the API server. In this particular case, I'm running it right here in my development environment on my local host. So it's running on my PC, just to show you that it's running here. But at the same time, the typical production implementation, of course, would be to run it either on your IBMI server or on a separate Windows or Linux server that's connecting to your IBMI. So the IDE here, if you've never seen Profound API, in the middle is where we have the steps or the logic of what happens in the API. On the left-hand side, we have our databases that we've configured that we're connecting to. Of course, we have a ribbon here with your typical open and save operations. Let me show you how to typically get started with something like this. So instead of putting all these routes from scratch and putting this logic from scratch, there's some shortcut or some wizards that can get you going quickly. So the way that I started with this particular one to expose my product information, I went to my library. In this case, it's demo lib library, and I found the file that I needed to work with. In that case, that was products P. Okay, here are the different columns, and you can right-click the file, database file, and you can say build an API, and out of the box, it's going to build your typical API, your CRUD type API that you would have with a file. And so here it built something like get list, which means I want to get a list of the products, get one product, I want to get one specific product if I know the product's ID. And as I'm going through these, I'm clicking over here, and you can see that the route information is changing. So part of what's changing is the input parameters. So I have the product ID here as the input parameter. If I click output parameters, what I'll see is the data coming back for that product. So we've defined that, and all of that is information that eventually is feeding into ChatGPT. It's also feeding into our open API specification. So we've got get one, add one, the ability to add a product, update a product, delete a product. So those are the typical ones that it will create out of the box for you. If you don't want to allow adding or updating or deleting, you can turn these off. You can either delete those routes altogether, or you can go ahead and disable them over here. So there's a few options, but this gets you started. And I think what I did for this particular example is I went ahead and manually added some more routes and built some additional logic to tap into things like categories. So it's looking not just at the products file, but also the categories file as well. So that's the process that I went through to create, let me close this out, this file. So this is the file that's already created. And the important thing that I did afterwards is I went in here, and for each one of the routes and each one of the input fields and each one of the output fields, I made sure that the description was descriptive enough so that the large language model of ChatGPT knew how to use API. So the large language model uses natural language to understand how to use your API. And these descriptions are very important. They ultimately go into the open API specification, and that's where they get read out of. So I made sure that all of these are set accordingly. So I went into each one of these and make sure that I'm happy with the descriptions. Even though it generates some default descriptions, I modified, I tweaked a few, and in my testing, just to make sure that the large language model understands how to use the API. That's a very important part of all of this. They sometimes call this prompt engineering. So this is the prompt. Part of this API specification is going to be the prompt that is sent to the large language model. One of the interesting things that Profound API offers as you're working with this is the ability to test the API and get statistics on the API. So here I can test the API by providing whatever parameters, or if I want to omit the parameters, let's just go ahead and execute this particular API, and here I see the output. So right within the ID, I can test the API. I can also look at the statistics of the APIs, how many requests there were since I started the server. So there were 2 requests. One might have been the one that I just did with the test. The other one might have come from when I was working with ChatGPT. The other important thing, and this is very important for this integration, is that we have something we call the API Explorer. This also serves as documentation. So this is a visual representation of what ChatGPT was actually looking at. So here's how you get a list of products. So this right here, we're looking at it visually, but really this is the open API specification. And if I click on this URL over here, I can see the JSON that is being provided to ChatGPT so that it knows how to understand how to integrate with your IBMI. So that's how all of this works. So this is just creating the API, and there's one more file that we create, and we saw this, it's called the manifest file. And that manifest file, I have it over here, is another file that I had to create, which is just a JSON file with, again, some more descriptive information, some more natural language information that I'm providing to ChatGPT. So I had to describe, here's a description for the human, but here's also the description for the model. And I decided to pack in some useful information in here, like what columns are available, like maybe what you can do. Again, this is part of prompt engineering, just to kind of specify, this is how I want you to use your API. So that file is the first thing that ChatGPT looks at. And then this file also opens to the URL of the open API specification. And from then on, everything is connected and you're able to interface with your data. All right, so that's how you integrate with your data through ChatGPT. But I'm pretty sure that not everyone wants your users or for you to go into ChatGPT to do this integration. And you can have this same interface outside of ChatGPT as well. And that just means you're going the other direction, means you're calling the ChatGPT API. So let me show you an example of that. So I'm going to go to the green screen and I've created a little program just as a demo. Normally I wouldn't do it this way, but I created a green screen interface to the AI. So let's go ahead and call this program. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to select one of the products. This is a modified version of the green screen program. I'll show you exactly what I did. Now look at the features. And now what I'm going to do is press F1 on any one of these features. So let's say I'm going to press F1 on the custom POIs because maybe I don't know what that means and I want some information. This has then being communicated to an AI API. Again, in this case, it's the ChatGPT API, but other language models can be introduced here as well. You can see this is the question that was generated to the API, and here's the answer. So it's explaining to me what custom POIs are, their points of interest, and there's this whole explanation that I can read about what that is. This information is coming from the large language model's own knowledge in this particular case, but if we wanted to feed data into it, we can do that as well, and I'll show you how that's done. All right, so how is that accomplished? Again, we have a Profound API server. In this particular instance, I do have it running on IBMI, and I've created something called a module. A module is a little different than an API. A module is something that you can integrate with through a direct call. So when I create a module file, you can see that I still have input parameters, and I can do something like, let's say add an input parameter of an answer, question, and whatever, the length can be 200 or something like that. And then I can have an output parameter of answer, let's say 1,000 in length. And so I'm creating this module. You can see it says routines, not routes, that my RPG program can call and pass in a question and get an answer. And then in the middle is where I'll have the logic to actually integrate with the large language model. And this is what I've done here. Now, this middle area is where we add low-code steps, and there are different capabilities available. You can integrate with data, you can integrate with API. In the particular case of integrating with an API, you can do it one of two ways. You can, if you know all of the HTTP parameters, there's a wizard that can kind of walk you through that. But the easiest way to do that through a lot of larger language models is just to take the snippet of code that they provide in their documentation and paste that in. And that's what I've done here. So basically, this is direct Node.js code, a snippet of code to send in the information. Now, the only thing that's kind of custom here is this system message. And keeping it very simple for this example is just saying you're assisting an IBMI application user. But the interesting thing is that you could provide a lot more information. And these context windows of how much information you can provide, that's growing very rapidly with the different models. You can actually specify something like a 100-page manual in here of all kinds of information that it could draw upon to answer the question. And then this right here is somewhat custom, but that's the input question that's coming into the module. So that's the setup. That's the setup for calling OpenAI. Again, very simple, just a question and answer. Of course, there are more complicated setups, and I'll show you an example of that as well, that are possible. But at the end of the day, what it gives you is an IBMI call interface. So this is the code that you can paste into your RPG program. It has the data structure for your question, a data structure for your answer, and the call that you can make to get the data out of the API. So what I've done in order to enable this capability, I went into my RPG program, pasted the data structures right here, so you can see the question and answer data structures, went down to the section of code where we've allowed the user to press F1, generated the question, made the call, got the answer, displayed it on the screen. Very simple integration. Again, normally we wouldn't integrate something like this with a green screen. We usually have a nicer web interface, but just to show the point of how easy we make it so that you can make that integration. So the last part of my demo, what I want to do is I want to show you how you can extend this to a web interface and add more capabilities. So I'm going to switch to this screen right here, which is just a web-based representation of the same green screen programs that we are running. This is our Genie implementation. Of course, all of this can be applied to some more advanced versions of this, like the rich displays, more advanced screens. But just to illustrate the point, we're going into those same programs, but running in a browser environment. Now, what we've done with the integration here is we've integrated a start a conversation widget that is taking the information that we're working with on these screens, and it's able to send that information out to a large language model to help you along, so you can ask any questions. So for example, in this particular case, I may say something like, help me compare the first two products features. We'll start something like this, and it's going to start answering the questions and navigating me through the process of comparing the products. So you saw that the answer, it was actually being streamed. So that's another capability of the API, is to be able to stream the answer. And we've integrated that here. And the answer that it's giving me is basically saying, yeah, we can compare the two products. That can be done by selecting them first and looking in the details, and it's giving me an action button to allow me to do this. I'm going to follow the process that it's giving to me. So it has automatically selected for me the product. It's now telling me to that it's going to look at the features. So I'm going to have it do that. So it's doing this for me. It's taking the actions for me. It's taking note of the different features that this product has. Now it's going to go back, and it's going to go back again. And at this point, let's see what it says, but I assume it's going to want to look at the second product. Yes, that's what this action does. So we're looking at the second product, and now we're going to look at the second product's features. So it's taking note of these features. It's saying that both of these products have custom POIs, traffic updates, traffic routes, eco routes, route choice, and automatic reroute. But the Garmin has photo navigation, speed limit, and picture viewer, and so forth. Whereas TomTom has voice prompts and so forth. I can maybe say something like, voice recognition is important to me. Which product do you recommend? So based on that requirement, it would recommend the TomTom XXL 540S. So again, you can see that you can have a conversation with an AI about the data that you're working with. So hopefully that gives you a good idea of what some of those capabilities are. Of course, we're just scratching the surface here, but hopefully you can see the potential in being able to integrate AI with your IBMI data. All right, with that, let me turn things over back to Brian. Brian, over to you.
Thank you, Alex. As you can see, if generative AI is not already on your business's roadmap, it should be. And a trusted partner like Profound Logic can help you navigate the AI landscape and integrate AI into your applications. Thank you for watching our webinar today. If you'd like to learn more, please visit us at profoundlogic.com/AI. If you'd like a demo or to have a conversation with one of our experts about AI and how it can help your business, please reach out to sales@profoundlogic.com.